Like,
sometimes when I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to my mom.
That's your grandpa? If you leap far enough, you'll land in the pool.
Let's hope you make that. Don't need another sprained ankle. Sometimes they need to feel like you're talking to them. If you were going to be in that
in a panel.
Hi, welcome back to the podcast.
My name is Christina, here at Brantley and Bailey. And today we're going to continue on mental health and focus on support and tools available. What's worked, why, what didn't work, and just kind of like that avenue. And then as far as like support, like what did that look like? How did we support? How can you support? And just encourage in a difficult time. So we will start with the different type of support that we gave. So just kind of a recap from our previous podcast was, Brantley at one point was in a crisis situation. And per recommendation from doctors and psychiatrists and pediatricians was that she went into intense therapy, which was inpatient. And she was there for about 10 days. And there they were able to work with her to get her through that crisis moment. And I really liked how the psychiatrist used the, you don't take lightly to an inpatient facility because it is a lot of hard work. Mentally, there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. And they're kind of like a tourniquet. So when a kid's in or a teen or a child or an adult is in a crisis moment, they're there as to help that hemorrhaging. So they're there to keep them in a safe place, to give them somebody to talk to get maybe medication if that's what needed, and just to get them through that. And then the hard work is outpatient therapy. And that's where you really start changing those thinking habits and working with the tools that you learn about in inpatient. So when Brantley came back home, we then had sessions of outpatient therapy and just making sure that she was taken care of and checks. And so as far as support went for us at home, it was just making sure that we were getting her to her therapy appointments, making sure that she was getting to the psychiatry appointments, because they did put her on some kinds of medication to just help level things out. And then at home, how are we supporting her at home as far as just, checking in with her, making sure she wasn't having those thoughts. And if she was having those thoughts, maybe she knew what triggered them, or we could kind of, work through some tools that she had learned. So when you came back home, what support or what tools did you find helpful to help you through those moments of maybe suicide ideations or self-harm or just really bad thinking, really bad mental space?
Once I got back from the hospital, it wasn't everything wasn't as messed up as it was before. Mm-hmm. So when I first got back, I noticed I was a lot more calm and passive, but I think that was just because of the environment I was in for a while.
It's calming.
It was just quiet.
Okay.
And then the nurses there always had a very they always enforced a very stable environment, which they should. So when I came back and it was chaotic house, it was kind of readjusting.
Yeah.
And the more I stayed at home, the more those thoughts came back just because I had to relearn how to deal with the chaos. And so it was just kind of going to Bailey or you or just around someone else that could like distract me from that for a little bit.
Okay.
And then like at night, if I was feeling it, like sometimes I would go into your room, or I would call a friend.
So just making sure that you were open and communicating what those thoughts were.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much having to communicate it with you. It was more of myself, like because I learned how to notice, like how to
Recognize?
how to recognize when I was feeling like that. It was like, okay, let's go find a safe person to be around. That way I don't feel like this for too much longer.
Makes sense.
Um,
Bailey, like you, so it might not be the same like headspace, right? But sometimes you get in like a funk or, we all go through those moments. What tools do you find help you?
Working on like a big project or like something that's coming up in the future, like even if it's just like studying for a test or quiz that's coming up.
Okay. Do you ever find like journaling or grounding yourself useful?
journaling wasn't so much of a help for me because, like I've said before, it just made the feelings worse.
Okay.
So it was more of grounding and like I didn't intentionally do it, but I would like try and rationally think through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like when you and Dad accuse me of sulking, sometimes I'm not sulking. I'm trying to rationally like think why I'm feeling like this,
Makes sense.
which causes me to be quiet and like
Think
shut myself out.
and think
Yeah.
and
Sometimes,
sulk.
I'm not sulking.
sometimes just sitting in my room talking out loud, talking through my thoughts.
Yes, there are moments when I walk into the laundry room and I'm like, who is she talking to? Who snuck in her bedroom? Second floor with no roof. Did she
In the
throw down?
smallest window possible.
She throw down her fire ladder? Because Bailey's the only one that needs a fire ladder in her bedroom. Because there's a fire in the laundry room. She's the only one that doesn't have a way to escape.
That's a hazard.
If you leap far enough, you'll land in the pool.
Let's hope you make that. Don't need another sprained ankle.
Did you try one and find that it worked, or did you try multiple?
It was more of a trial and error kind of thing because there were ones that wouldn't do anything and make me feel like I wanted to kill myself more.
So, like, ones that we tried was like journaling, walking.
I tried journaling, but like I could never get my thoughts on paper. It was easier to just talk through it.
I like brain dump. Brain dump is probably my favorite, where you just write down everything, even like the random thoughts. The grounding, so different coping mechanisms. What was one of your favorite ones, Brantley?
I like looking around a room and trying to find as many colors as I can and like list them off as fast. Like,
And so,
because it's like a really weird distraction thing because you're already in such like a state that like you want to find something fast.
that's
So,
what I was
like,
going to ask, if like using that coping mechanisms helps kind of like focus your attention on something else and not what those thoughts are.
especially if it's like something like around you, because then it would usually like make a U-turn in my mind and I would like eventually like space off or something.
Okay.
For me, part of mine is like everything goes through my head. Like I'm listing off everything.
Mm-hmm.
So finding one thing and just describing it in my head helps. Like if I'm outside, I'll like describe the trees or like a building nearby.
Or count bricks while
Yes.
you're waiting to go on stage.
I've done that before. I've counted all the bricks in a row in the school cafeteria.
Awesome. One area that I noticed, like even with myself, and it's crazy. So when my girls started getting their menstrual cycle, I tracked it. Like, I tracked myself. Because then it allowed me to kind of predict like when their moods were going to change, which really came in good play in effect for going through this with Brantley. Really, because after she came back, and I know it's probably like too much information, but when she came back, we would notice like her medicine worked, and then it would drop. Like her attitude would drop, the mental state, health would drop. And she would almost crash, and then she would have a whole week of that. And so in talking with her psychiatrist and her therapist, we kind of like thought, well, maybe if we could up her dosage to help with those cortisol levels, maybe it would help balance it out, which it's done a great deal in balancing that. Let's say like a level of like pure goof for an entire week and then back to normal. But we'll take pure goof over sadness any day. But one thing I noticed in tracking their cycles, and even myself, is diet and how much our diet and the foods that we're eating affect our behavior. And I remember this last time, and it was probably a couple months ago, or maybe you love Takis, but there's so many ingredients in there, preservatives. And I know for myself, I don't do well with that. But you just like had an entire meltdown, and you were like, just take the bag. I don't even want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, I was done.
And so I think so much of our, like, I don't know. I truly believe, I am not a doctor, but I think that what we eat affects our brain and how it functions. And I think when we're eating something that's got so many ingredients in it, it just messes with us.
Just a lot of processed stuff.
Yeah.
Is like terrible.
Yeah. So I think really focusing on like clean eating. Y'all really like ramen, but just using the noodles and maybe not like the seasoning packets and kind of creating your own seasoning has been a healthy version of being able to continue eating something that you like, just in a healthier way.
Yeah.
And I know for like Bailey, like when she has that like lots of sugar can kind of make her cranky, even though we want the sugar. But so what I think diet is another huge one.
Okay.
Y'all have always enjoyed walking as like a way to just.
I like it because it gives me like a moment to like escape the house, and then like I can kind of goof off in my own world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun.
And then this is another topic, another area in just having to just monitor it, is just kind of creating that space for yourself to just kind of like decompress and just have a moment, while still providing like a safe place in a healthy mindset. Or if you're not, just making sure that, yeah, you do have that time alone, but we're just checking in with you.
Yeah.
And talking like support and tools. How helpful is it being able to talk to teachers or your counselors at school or even your friends and family members? Did you find that helpful or sometimes that difficult?
It's helpful, but yet really difficult because, like, unless you've already talked to someone about this stuff, it's kind of scary.
Really, because you're really vulnerable. Like,
Yeah.
really vulnerable.
It's like just throwing yourself out there, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I almost feel like that keeping like just a few people, like that community really small as far as like who we're sharing our struggles with. Because I think it's important for all of us to have some person to talk to just for them to even listen.
And like at the school we're at, we have like the teachers in like the art department who are just like very much like, they're almost like parental figures to the entire art department and everyone in it. So going to them is a lot easier than going to like maybe the counselor.
And you have a relationship with them because you see them probably more than you see the counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one would be, you guys had like jotted down consistency. What about consistency?
You need to actually follow through with what you're saying.
And how do we go about making sure that we're following through?
Just ask them, like,
How are you feeling today?
are you doing good?
And if they're not feeling good that day, just stick a little closer to them.
Don't take it to the point where it's like you're harassing them to talk to you, because sometimes they don't want to talk, they just need someone there.
Yeah.
Do you think that you guys go to that because your dad and I are always like, how was your day? What did you do today? Like that's always like so much that it's in your dad's clock, not his clock, in his phone. Ask wife how her day was.
I don't know, because, like, even, like, with one of my friends, I, like, had spoke to him about something, but then, like, one day I was, like, really tired, and so I just spoke to him, and, like, I don't know.
I was tired, so I spoke to him. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Like,
I was
just,
delusional that day.
I was just, like, telling him about how I didn't get a lot of sleep. And then, like, the next day he's like, hey, did you sleep last night? I'm like, yeah, I did. Thanks for asking. Anyways, that little bit of just, like, hey, did you sleep last night has grown into, like, a really good friendship that I can, like, talk to him about, like, anything. One thing I can say is, like, be vulnerable with them, but don't make it about you. Like, there's a fine line between being vulnerable and sharing, like, hey, I've been through this. If someone's like, hey, I've had a bad day, be like, yeah, I haven't had the greatest either. Tell me about yours.
That is great. You're so much like. Do you ever feel like you're talking to your dad when
No.
you talk to Bailey?
No,
I do.
I don't.
Maybe it's just because, like.
Sometimes when I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to my mom.
That's your grandpa? I think just to recapping, some of the tools out there to kind of help you, like coping mechanisms. You got name your 2 favorite, Brantley.
The color grounding thing. And just if you're at that point, figure out what your triggers are and tell someone about that. That way.
Yeah, understanding what your triggers are is like another
That's a
big
big one.
Fidgety toys are
Fidget
helpful.
toys.
Or rings. I wear a lot of rings. They're nice to play with.
Or like I like wearing big earrings because I can fidget with them when I'm like in class, and they aren't a
Anxious.
hassle.
Invest in jewelry.
Sometimes long necklaces.
So the things we talked about, like journaling or brain dumping, just checking in on your diet, walking, exercising, and then just the grounding mechanism, which is kind of just taking one focus and trying to focus on something else.
Yeah.
Whatever
Or
that
another
is.
helpful one is like list 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell.
2 things you can.
I don't know, taste.
Touch. One thing
It's
you can
touch.
taste.
1 thing you can taste.
Good, because man, 5 things to taste. That would bite the palate.
But that one focuses on like your 5 senses.
I'm a very sensory person, so I like touching things or like chewing on something. So it's kind of like a weird thing. It all depends on like who, like what your thing is. Like if you're a very mind-bendy person, you may want to like count by 5s to like 200 or something.
List pi to the 13th hundred digit.
Yeah, there you go.
So those are helpful tools. And then just support. Again, checking in, making sure you're doing all right. Just keeping that open dialogue.
Even the most minimal thing can help a lot.
And then the other part of that is if, you need the therapy, find the therapist. Again, we are not medical professionals. This is all based on our own personal experience. What has worked for us may not work for you. Maybe more severe, may not be as severe. So just consult with your primary care provider. So that is all. That is all for this podcast. If you're watching by video, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll be back again next week.
Hasta la vista.
Bonne journée.
Peace.
Nope.